Ladies and gentlemen, Sublimely Elegant here as always, and welcome back to the Doom Builder 2 tutorials. In this episode we're going to be covering doors. Now, doors have some specific sizes unless you want to get creative and just go balls to the wall and make your own door. To make this easier, I'm going to delete this vertice here, so we can go to vertices mode and press the delete key while it's highlighted, and that will remove it and make this line def its own line entirely, which makes it much easier to manipulate. Now we're going to move it in closer so that the width between the two sectors here is 16, assuming you have your grid size set to 16 MP. And then go ahead and, while in line defs mode, you're going to make a 16 by 128 sector. And this will bridge the gap between the two sectors that we've created, and if you go to visual mode, you can see that. In fact, I seem to have this height. Everything was set a little lower than 0, that's why that happened. Sectors, I believe, will default the floor and ceiling heights to the lowest possible one adjacent. I could be incorrect on that, and it's just kind of something you'll have to keep an eye out for so that you don't have random drops and steps that you haven't been expecting in your map design. And that's something that you'll naturally see as you're working on the map, so I wouldn't worry it too much. So what a door basically is in Doom is a room, just like this, a very tiny room, where the ceiling falls and rises. Yep, that's it. That's all a door is. I know, right? Blows your mind. Fairly simple shit. Start off, we're going to do a little bit of texture work here. So the door typically rides on a track. So we're going to go ahead and edit the texture again, right-clicking on it and going to the Side Defs tab and clicking on the exposed texture in order to bring up the browser textures, and then go over to the Doors tab. This will give us everything doors, which is great. Now, for the door track, typically, vanilla style, you will use the straight up door track. You could use door stop, that doesn't look bad, and when it comes to texturing, I can say it a million times, it's very subjective. It's how you want it to look, and that's what's great about creating your own maps. You get to choose and make these decisions to make your own aesthetic style. We're going to be going fairly vanilla with it, so we're going to be using the door track. Click OK, and you'll see that will paste. Now, if I highlight the ceiling of this sector and scroll down, it will change the ceiling height. You'll see that the texture here is actually following it, and that looks kind of janky. The door would ride on the track, not push it down, you would think at least. Well, we can fix that. If you highlight the texture and press L, you'll see in the bottom left there, it says Set Lower Unpegged Setting. Now the bottom left is where you're going to see all the actions that happen. If you look in the bottom left again, you'll see change floor height to -8, change floor height to 0, change ceiling height to 136, change sector brightness to 160. Everything that you do is going to happen in that bottom left. So it's very important to pay attention to that. So we've set a lower unpegged setting by highlighting it and pressing the L key, and now when we scroll down on this, you'll see that the texture actually stays in place. Looks a lot more natural, a lot nicer. It's a very polished look, and something that, you trust me, in 2014, damn near 2015 here, a lot of people that still play Doom, this old school Doom, are going to be paying attention to these very finite details. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on stuff like this. Sometimes it slips by. Usually people will let you know if you're on sites like ZDoom forums. They will take a look and say, oh, well, you missed this. I've had that happen before on the forums where I completely forgot to peg a door texture, and the door literally like expanded itself down and the texture didn't move at all. It just like grew. Ugh, looked so weird, but I didn't notice it because I hadn't played tested it, and someone pointed out that for me. So usually the Doom community will be fairly nice and help you out with that kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and copy this texture over to the other side. Also highlight at lower unpegged settings so that the door can move properly and it looks fine. So we've got those textures set. For the floor texture, typically you can leave it fine as the same floor texture of the sector surrounding it. There's some points where you might want to set it to something like a gray brick or a metal so that it It all depends. Ceiling 5 can look nice now and then, depending on the situation. It doesn't look good in this part. It just looks very strange, very odd. Door stop, depending if it'll face the right way. You cannot rotate textures at all, so that's purely luck-based. If the door happened to be going this way instead, that would have just repeated in this same direction and looked very, very strange. And it also looks strange anyways because it happens to cut off there and restart the texture. So that's not going to quite work. Flat 4, flat 19, these are both fairly typical textures as well. We're going to go ahead and just set it to the floor texture for now, though we can deal with that later. For the bottom of the door, however, which is literally just the ceiling, we will set it to ceiling 5. That's what I typically use, at least. Seems to look fine. You can also use more metallic or gray textures for that as well. Go ahead and bring the ceiling height all the way down to 0 so that it's flush with the floor, just like the door would be, and you're going to be exposed to the exclamation marks of terror yet again. But don't worry, we know how to fix it. Simply right-click, side defs, and here it's going to tell you which texture you're looking to change. Now, because of the way that the sector was made, you remember how it was lower? It pre-made textures, which is why there's a texture down here. No one's going to see it, so you can actually even delete it and it will be fine, but you can purely ignore that. We just need to concentrate on the exclamation marks here. So, we're going to go ahead and go to the Doors tab here and go to Big Door 2. Click OK. Looks great. Copy that over to the other side. Oh, that's strange, isn't it? Alright, well, there's a couple ways you could change this. 3, in fact. If you aim at the texture and hold down the left mouse button and drag, it's going to lock the mouse cursor to that point of the texture, and you can literally drag it around on the plane to where you like it. It's very hard to control, and it, frankly, looks trippy as hell, doesn't it? Just shows you really how the engine works. You can also aim at it like so, and then use the arrow keys on the keyboard and move it pixel by pixel, which is very nice. You're going to be using that quite often to get very precise movement of your textures to ensure that the level looks good. And then to default it back to 0, 0, which will fix our issue here, you simply want to look at it, hold Shift, and press R. That will quote-unquote 0, 0 the offsets of the texture, which usually will make it fine. So, now we've got a good looking door. We have the door tracks set, and they won't move with the door. But it's not quite a door. It's just something you'll run into. It's something you can't pass through. It's something you can't interact with at all. So how do we fix that? Well, you want to go ahead and select both of these lines. You can do it one at a time if you like, whichever your speed preferred, and then right-click to edit the line defs. If you've selected both of them, it'll say 2 by edit line defs, just so you know exactly what you're doing. Now for action, just like I've shown you before, we're going to go over to the very right, generalized actions, category door. Trigger, door repeatable is standard. You also have other things like walk over once, switch once, gunfire once, which means you shoot it and it will do it. And if you do it once instead of repeatable, it means you can perform that action once. That's it, once. If we set it to door once, you can open this door once. It will close. You cannot open it again, ever. Just how it works, unless you have something else in the level like a switch, reopen it via tags, which is complex, and we can get to that at a later time. We're going to be doing a very standard door that we can continuously use, so door repeatable is our trigger. For action, we're just going to do the very standard open, wait, close. All these are very self-explanatory, and you can use these to however you need for that particular situation. Again, it's your map. That's what's great about it. Speed, normal, wait. And this is the time that the door will actually remain open before the ceiling descends down or closes. So we're going to do the standard, the standard 4 seconds. Monsters, no, yes. What this dictates is whether or not monsters in the level can actively open that door or use that switch, stuff like that. If you want smarter monsters, you'd select yes. If you don't want smarter monsters, or you just want to make it impassable area unless the players opened the door or lowered the floor or what have you, then you want to select no. And that's a very subjective preference. Again, use it on a case-by-case basis and click OK. That will give you an action number that is customized to the door that you've set up. Click OK, and then once you've cleared your selection, you will now see that the line defs are a shade of green. When a line is a shade of green like that, it means that the line has some sort of action. You can't tell quite what the action is just by looking at it, but it helps to know that it's an action at all by the green coloring. You're going to be wanting to keep an eye on the coloring of the lines around your level quite often, because it will usually give you a pretty decent hint as to what those lines are for based on its surroundings. When you have a very small square area connecting two bigger areas and it's green like that, typically it's some kind of door. So knowing the green is an action is highly helpful. If we go ahead and go up to the play button, assuming you've set that up, and click play, it will load our map. But oh no, big error, scary words, things we don't understand. That's okay. It says right here, no player one start. It's a very easy mistake to make. You get excited. I just did. You want to go over to things mode. You could click on that or press T, and then right click somewhere on the map, and this will create a thing and immediately open the edit thing properties tab to where you can find the list of all the things like monsters that you can place, or teleport pads, or weapons that you'd like to place for pickups, or ammunition to pick up, or power-ups, or health and armor, keys, everything. All of those things are, well, things. So we're going to be wanting the player one start, which it's defaulted to for the first item, and will actually, I think it defaults for every item, and it will usually bring up the last thing that you made as the default again. And for settings, don't mess with these at the moment, but if you say uncheck easy on this thing, that means that if the player starts the game, the level, in easy difficulty, this thing will not spawn. We don't want that for the player start, obviously, because if someone were to say, oh, I want to do the level easily, they suddenly can't even play because there's no player start. So you want to leave that on for the player, but that's how you can control difficulty in your levels, by manipulating those settings to make it hard for the player if there's more monsters that can spawn on hard rather than medium and easy. That's how you can control that level. You can also make the monsters deaf and not participate or not spawn in deathmatch and stuff like that. But those are all multiplayer based things, and you most likely won't be using those for quite a while. On the bottom here you will see angles, and you can click on these and it will set an angle at 45-degree integers. So you can have straight looking up at 90 degrees or a 45-degree angle looking up and right. We're going to have ours facing down and to the left so that he's facing the door. And if you hold down the right mouse button and drag around, you can manipulate the position of the thing. We're going to put him in the corner just like that because that's fine for us. So now we click the play test button again, and we can actually get into the game and play our game. This is where you can run up and test our door. All the textures appear to be working fine. We've got our little water here that's automatically animated, and if you walk in it, you'll notice that you lower by a little bit because it is lower, and everything seems to be running smoothly. So just like that, you've created a door. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.